Hi everyone, it's September 29th and the hoopos continues to do quite well. I've had a lot of produce already out of the bed of cool weather crops, but today's subject is going to be tomatoes. I have been harvesting tomatoes for a long time, it seems now, sometime in August I guess when it actually got started, but I've eaten a lot of fresh tomatoes. I've canned tomatoes, and today I'm going to harvest some and dehydrate them. The canned tomatoes are lovely, but you have to open up a whole jar in order to use them, so sometimes part of that goes to waste. So I think I will dehydrate a lot of tomatoes, and that way you can just use the amount that you want to rehydrate and use in soups or whatever. So I'm going to pick some tomatoes, and then I'll show you the dehydrator again. This particular plant is Buckby's New. I have a few of these, a couple out here in the hoop house and a couple more in the small greenhouse. They produce by far my largest tomato, and they're a very good tomato. Sweet, tasty, and very meaty. There are seeds, but as compared to other tomatoes, there are a lot fewer seeds and a lot more of the nice meaty flesh. So I do use them a lot in sauces, but also in sandwiches and salads and all that sort of thing. They're a very nice tomato. Anyway, I'll finish picking tomatoes out here, maybe a few out of the other greenhouse, and then I'll show you what I do to dehydrate them. Well, that's it for the Buckby's New out here in the hoop house. I may get a few more up in the small greenhouse before I go in the house, but I wanted to show you, when they're fully ripe, they still tend to have a green or greenish yellow shoulder on them. I find if I leave them much longer, then they split or whatever. I suppose it's because of too much moisture. I'm not really sure, but anyway, I tend to pick them when they still have that bit of a green or yellowish shoulder on them. They still taste very good, but they haven't split. I don't think that's a good idea to let them split open, and that always seems to happen for some reason or another. Before we leave, just a little shot down the length of the raised bed out here. Can't seem to resist bragging about how well things are doing. As I say, it's the end of September. We haven't had any frost. Actually, we haven't had even close to frost. It's been down 11, 12 degrees most nights. I think one night in here it went down to 6 degrees. That was a few weeks ago. But that can change very quickly here. I'm thinking the early frosts, anyway, won't bother anything in the hoop house. It will settle on the ceiling rather than down on the plants. So time will tell as to what I actually get for a harvest out of here, but it's been a lot of fun playing with it and watching anyway. Well, the first thing I like to do is to remove the skin. They'll dry just as well with the skin on them, but it makes a tough sort of a thing when you go to use them later on. Floats up in your soup and isn't very attractive, so I find the easiest thing to do is to remove the stems. I begin by taking out the stem end of each tomato, paring knife. Then I blanch them in boiling water. Just a few minutes in boiling water, large stock pot of just plain boiling water, no seasonings or anything like that. You can tell when they're ready to come out because the skin will start to split. see that or not, but the skin has started to split away. And to stop any cooking process which has already begun, I plunge them into ice water bath where will stop any of the cooking. And also make it so your tomatoes are cool enough that you can pick them up, handle them, and remove the skin. And once they've cooled down, it's quite an easy process to take the skin off. Do any final paring if there's any bad spots that you don't like the looks of. Like some reason, well, of course, I guess everything you ever see in the store is the blemish-free tomato, but for some reason there's always something on them that I don't like the looks of. So I just cut that off and discard it. The next step after I've done all of that is to I slice them into quarters and maybe even smaller pieces than quarters, because you want them to get quite dry, and the larger the piece that you put in the dehydrator, the longer it's going to take it to dehydrate it. Well, that's one tray with the tomatoes sliced and ready to start the dehydrating process. When I was slicing them up, I also took that opportunity to cut off some of those green or yellow shoulders, parts of the tomato that weren't quite ripe, especially if they were very hard. So now it's time to start a second tray. I think I have enough for at least 3 trays. There are 4 with this dehydrator, so I have to use all 4 trays whether they're empty or full, but we'll see how many I have when I finish. Tray number 2 completed, so going to get at least 3 out of it, I guess. Got enough left to fill that, I'm sure. Well, it looks like this will be one of the few times that I've used the dehydrator when it's completely full. There's 3 full trays, and that's the last tray going on top, and I have enough tomatoes here that should fill or almost fill that one. The dehydrator's full, and I just looked at the little book that came with the dehydrator, and it says 10 to 14 hours, and they're talking about if they recommend slicing the tomatoes an 1/8 of an inch thick. Well, I think most of mine are thicker than that, so I suspect it'll be 24 hours or so before they're dry. Also, I use the very simplest of dehydrators. It only has an off-on switch, no settings or anything. The same company, Nesco, makes a more complicated one that you can set the temperatures with, but I hadn't had a dehydrator in years. I think I bought this on eBay or somewhere a few months ago, but I don't know if I like it enough. I guess I may get into a better model, but so far for what I've been doing, this has worked just fine. It is a bit noisy, and here we go. I'll see you in 24 hours time or so when these are dry. Day 2, I just shut the dehydrator off. I think altogether it went around 20 hours. These pieces, as I said earlier, were a bit thicker than what they called for the 14 hours or whatever. They're all very, very crisp and dry. One of the suggestions is to put them in a blender or food processor or whatever and grind them into a powder. The powder can be used as soups, but I'm not so sure that I'll do that. I think right now I'll just put them in an airtight container and keep them if I want to add them to soups or whatever. I can add them later on, but it's amazing when you see how thick these little pieces were yesterday, and today they're little crisp chips. Didn't stick to the dehydrator, at least not too bad. I mean, it needs to be cleaned up obviously afterwards, but they're lifting off. Anyway, I'll show you how much I have once I get them all picked off and in a container. One thing dehydration does is it gives you a lot of extra storage space. That partial basket or whatever of tomatoes dehydrated down into this little container. But they're just as dry as chips, so they should last for quite a while without spoiling or anything. I can hardly wait to use them. I'll make a soup in a few days or something and add a few and see what that's like. That way I'll know whether or not I want to dehydrate more as the rest of my tomato harvest ripens up this fall. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.